more baggage. And sometimes we pick up baggage from people who love us dearly. They just don't realize that their words cut like a knife.
Son,
Hey, Dad.
what happened out there?
The ball slipped. The lights got in my eyes.
The lights got in your eyes.
Yeah.
You know that's what cost us the game, don't you?
Yeah.
The ball slipped. How many times have I gotten up in the morning before 5 a.m., before I go to work on the stuff with you, huh? There were scouts out there. You realize that?
Dad, the ball slipped.
The ball slipped.
It did. I mean, what do you
Hey,
want me
Coach. Huh? No. Butterfingers, yeah. We're going to work with him. Uh-huh. All right. See you later. Are you crying?
No.
Well, don't. Pull it together. People are watching. I want you to grab your stuff. I'm going to go to the car and I'll meet you there, all right?
Dad.
I'm just disappointed in you, all right? These were our dreams, right? Grab your stuff.
And our parents, they don't mean to hurt us. It's just, they've got their own baggage. And when you don't deal with baggage, you pass it on. And for us, we have to learn to find our self-worth only in our relationship with Christ. And if we don't, we pick up more baggage.
Brilliant, brilliant. So our parents, don't we like to blame our parents for our stuff, right? And I don't know about you. Do you do that? Some of you do, some of you don't. Yeah. Well, today I really want to talk about getting the victory in the battle of your mind. And because we're talking about carrying your victory, right? But that's interesting. A lot of the time, the battle is actually not where we think it is. We often look right in front of us. Or sometimes you're looking behind for a battle, for a fight. You're looking like, where is this pain coming from? Where is this pushback coming from? And sometimes we look right in front of us at, who's directly in front of us must be the problem. Or, I've got sneaky people around. People are out to get me. But really what happens is that's not actually the fight of the enemy. The fight of the enemy is actually lies that we listen to. The weapons of the enemy are actually spiritual, and that they come and they try and rob and steal our faith and our identity and who we are as people of God. And it happens. The battle starts in here. The battle starts in here. And then the enemy knows if he can win in your mind, in your thoughts, everything else is going to lead, everything else in your life, he can change the direction of in your world if he gets a hold of your thoughts. If he gets hold of my thoughts, I can either be... Tim had an interesting thing this morning talking about Ferraris and bicycles. And he told us a story about, was it a Ferrari? Or a Maserati? It was a Ferrari. I think I just want a Maserati. That's why I got Maserati on the brain. And the bike. And it's like, which one do you want to be? And, I yelled out, because I'm the big mouth amongst them, I want the Ferrari. That's the best one. Depending on how much baggage in it, and if you can drive the thing, and if you end up hitting a pole because you don't have the skills to drive it. I don't think me getting a Ferrari may not be the best thing to do. But, you get in your thoughts, something's happened. What happens in the battle of our mind is the very first battle, the very first issue that we've all faced is this, what I call, and maybe someone else has used this, but I thought this was Pastor Tony Mould, right? I come up with this. And then you probably get on Google and you'll find someone else has said it, right? But I didn't Google this one, right? So the very first issue was that humans, the very first humans, right, outsourced their thinking to someone else. So like, you know, when you've got, I don't know about you, but I'm not a plumber, right? And when I've got plumbing issues, I have tempted in the past to fix plumbing issues, but I've learned that I ought to outsource that to someone who knows what they're doing. One year, I had a Ford Ranger, and it wasn't working terribly well. And somebody who I thought knew what they were talking about said, "Yeah, just change the air filter." And you know, go down to Super Cheap, get the number and get the air filter, and just that'll fix it up. Oh, right, okay. So I think the best place to outsource mechanics is a mechanic, right? We've got a mechanic here in the building. Mechanics are my favourite people. They keep me moving. I like mechanics. You know, closely followed by a plumber, because, you know, they keep me moving too, right? So that wasn't in the script. That was just free. I got to outsource to the professionals, right? Now, this air filter, mate, I don't have a clue what I'm doing, but I've got the manual out. I've found a manual to teach me how to change the air filter on the front of this new fancy pants, you know, Ford Ranger. And it was semi-working before I got to the car. But once I changed it, you know, it didn't start at all. And I'm like, I did everything in the book says. I know, you know, sometimes we go to the Bible, I did everything the Bible said. It didn't work out. The thing from the beginning of time, right, is the first problem is Adam and Eve actually outsourced their thinking to another, because they were actually in the garden talking and that seeing God, like God was walking in that garden, right? And then a slippery serpent comes along, a deceiver. The serpent is a deceiver, right? And they outsourced their thinking. The deceiver said, "Did God really say you should do that? Did he really say that?" And then he said, "Oh, you're not going to die. You're just going to be like God. You'll know the difference between good and evil." And they took the fruit of the garden, which they were not supposed to. They were disobedient. They weren't to take. The only thing they weren't to have. And the deceiver, the liar, comes along and goes, "Oh, but it's really nice. That'd be really nice to have. That'd be really nice to do that. It'd be really nice to have that and be like that." And that was the first change of mind. See, they allowed their thinking to be outsourced to another. And it's interesting, where do today do we get our thinking from? Where do we get our thoughts from? You know, I don't know about you, but I'm a Googler too. You know, I like, "Oh, what's that? Look it up." Look it up, when I was a kid, means Mum and Dad expected me to go into the lounge room, into the big bookcase, and get the Britannica encyclopedia up. You know, and they even had even bigger ones than the Britannica. They had this really old school, and so they were this thick, these encyclopedias. Like they must have been granddad's when, you know, he was a little kid. They were huge. And so the first couple of times I did that, that was, you know, look through these books. To find a word, it'd take me 20 minutes, you know, to get these giant, you know, things to inform me about what I should do. Now we type it into Google, and Google spits out a whole, depending on how you say your statement or your question, Google is very, very smart. Google has all of these things in it that has all these algorithms, and when you ask a question in a certain way, it immediately knows what you're getting at, and it shoots up all the possible answers that it thinks that you want, especially related on your history of your search and the history of others. And they'll just throw up things, and if you click on one of those, you reinforce that algorithm. It's going, oh, goody, I've got what this person wants. And they think they're doing the right thing. They're trying to make your search easier, right? And they just, from the word go, the intent is to give you information that you think that you want. And it's very interesting. It's there. We can outsource our thinking to Google. We can outsource our thinking to YouTube. We can outsource our thinking and about how we're going to live our life to some preacher on a screen or some teacher around the other side of the world that you don't have a clue what's going on in their town. You don't even know, you've never had a conversation with them. You don't know anything about them apart from they've been on the telly. Yet we can outsource our thinking to strangers, to complete strangers, because they were on the Google. I've done that myself. We can even outsource our thinking to news, news highlights. The news says, another thing on the... I haven't said COVID word publicly forever because it's so, half of you think this about that and half you think about that, and good on you, whatever you think. I'm not getting in on that one. But where did you get your information from? Where did you source that? Where did you outsource your thinking and your life from it? Now, and what has that outsourcing then proven in you? Has it brought about fear? Has it brought about, some of us are anti-governmenters and some of us are do the right thingers, and we've got all sorts of things coming out of the woodwork. And I can guarantee you, each one of you found a website to prove what you think. God says this, for as the heavens are higher than the earth, so my ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts are higher than your thoughts. In other words, when we want to get a load of heaven, friends, we got to get higher than Google. We got to get higher than our screens. We got to get higher than the news headlines, and we got to. And if we don't want to end up in a bad way like the original humans did, the only place we outsource our thinking is to Jesus. In context with His people. That's why we belong together as a church, because we can. When you get a bit weird. And I get a bit weird, and we say, hey, dude, what is that about? Is that really what God, is that healthy for your relationship with God and for others? And because that's what God's about, isn't He? This is all about a relationship with Jesus and about a relationship with us here. And is that going to be healthy? But if we outsource our thing, we can outsource our thinking to other ideas and places. And we expect a God outcome when really the outcome of that thought is worldly. Our life is always moving in the direction of our strongest thoughts. Have a think about that. Our life is always moving in the direction of our strongest thoughts. So the prophet prophesied, his ways are higher, his ways are wiser, right? So if we want to get a heaven's results, then we want God to lay a hold of our strongest thoughts. We need a more helpful and productive way of thinking. And a productive life, we need a productive way of thinking, because it's going to be here that's going to determine the direction of your life and where we get it. I just wonder right now, have a bit of a think, well, what have been the strongest thoughts that you've had over the last week? Have they really been that helpful to you? Have they really been that productive? Where have they been productive? Have they produced the life of God in anybody else? Or what? What is it producing in your world today? I think it's interesting in 2 Corinthians 3:4 it says this, "For though we live in the world, we do not wage war as the world does. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world." And that's interesting. So he's saying it's not even an economic battle. Because what do you need to start a war? Money. The world tells you if you want to advance, you need money. But the weapons of of the warfare going on in your world isn't actually your physical needs. It's what's going on in your brain. It's the starting place of the what's the place of your victory is going to start right here. It's not about how someone else is going to meet one of my needs. I think I could just be a better mum if my husband would do more at home. You can switch that around if you want. I think I'd be a better dad if my wife would stop nagging me. She's out the back there, so she'll watch it later, don't you worry. So you don't have to run out there and tell her after. If I could, I'd be a better manager if just the boss would give me a bigger budget. We see the victory within the physical need, but the victory is actually going to start in our thinking, not actually in our present need. Yeah. See, it's not of the world. And then it says, on the contrary. All right, so there's a flip side of this. You ain't going to find the answer out there. You're going to find the answer here. On the contrary, they have divine power. They have divine power to demolish strongholds. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, me knowing God. And we take captive of every thought to make it obedient to Christ. And we will be ready to punish every act of a disobedience in ourselves once your obedience is complete. I want to give 3 quick things this morning. If you take out what you can out of this. But first of all, we want to talk about this. Remember the original outsource of thinking, how that happened. Adam and Eve, they messed it up, right? They outsourced their thinking to the enemy, to the world, and it messed it up. I've called this one false facts and alternative truths. The enemy, the devil, and all of hell, right? Here's a spiritual enemy, a spiritual existence that got cast out of heaven. Why? Because of self. Wanting for self. Wanting the glory. Wanting everyone to follow him. Follow me. Follow me. That's how he got cast out. God was like, I ain't going to share my glory with anyone. Out you get. The enemy wants us to live out of lies. He is the father of alternative truths. What did the original serpent do? Gave Adam and Eve an alternative pathway, an alternative truth. Gave them a lie to live out. Oh, by the way, you're not going to die. I'm not quite yet. Didn't finish it, right? He gave them alternative truths. We could call them false facts. I love it. I was talking about before. You can all find facts for your COVID stuff. Awesomeness. But what does Jesus say about it? What does Jesus say about it? He's just going to say the same thing. Love one another. Care for one another. Be good, kind to one another. Be gentle with one another. Be filled with love, peace, and joy. Don't let fear rule your heart. He's going to use the same thing whether it's called COVID or cancer. Whatever enemy it be. So, let's have a look at this. He talks about these arguments. All right, we're talking about, so the Greek word about this, about false arguments and these pretenses. The word there is, what is it? Logismos. Logos is from the word, right? So it's this word, this thought, this reasoning. It's a process. Cognitive is your thought process. Okay, calculating, reasoning, a reflection, a thought. It's the capacity to reason and develop an argument. That's what it talks about. Some of your versions might talk about the arguments, the arguments that set themselves up. They become an alternative for us. We just, we don't like sort of using the word liar, pants on fire. If only someone turned around, if only God showed up on the scene and pointed at the devil and went, liar, liar, pants on fire. But the tricky serpent he knew, just get him alone. Just get him alone. Just get him alone. That's why God built his church. We were never supposed to be alone. We were supposed to be together. Again, there's another pretense and argument. I don't need church. Well, Jesus came to die for his church. We don't need it. I need you. I need you. I love it. I love being with you here. I know I'm sort of standing up here, but I'm with you. I'd actually rather be down there. Can I go down there? Can we put that down here? Oh, I'm going to bust my back if I try that myself. Don't say that, Tony. I build up this argument. What do we call it? Justification. Why do you do what you do? Oh, because of this. I can't change your mind because it's become such a play. You'll argue till you I ain't gonna change your mind. You've convinced yourself, or someone has convinced you. Don't you worry. The Google, he'll convince you of what you want to be convinced. Because of the algorithms, they've set you up already. As soon as you've asked the question in the algorithm, the computer knows exactly what answers you want. And it's going to give you pages of it. So you will believe what you will believe. And then when someone tries to speak to it, what happens? You'll defend that sucker, won't you? You'll defend your reasoning. It becomes a place. It becomes what we're about to learn. It becomes a stronghold. It becomes a fortress. And it becomes actually a preference. Now, not only do you argue it, it can become a preference for your life. That I'm a battler. I'm a battler and I'll always have no money. And because of this and because of what my dad did and because someone ripped us off and took all our money, in business, that I'll never be able, I'll always be a battler. I'll always not have enough money. I'll never have enough money to do what I need to do in life. And you've convinced, if we believe that lie, I'll never have enough money to be who God's called me to be or to do what, then you've just built yourself a fortress. You've just sat up on a hill. Oh, now I wish I could get up there again. You've stood up on a hill and you've gone, this is my place. I'm convinced that I'll never have enough money. And I'm convinced that our rich people are just all greedy gutses. And they should just give it to me. But I'm always going to struggle and I'm always not going to have enough. And then that becomes your preferred place. And it becomes what you begin to speak. You're struggling always with money. You hear yourself talk about it. Now, I ain't got anyone's, I'm not picturing anyone. But I think we've all been there, haven't you? I've been there. I don't have enough money for that. Oh, mate, if you haven't been there, we've all been there, right? And then that becomes our preferred place to be. I'm the battler. You haven't been in a workplace where that worker is just like always against the boss? Like someone has to take a stand against the boss, and they begin to believe their own lie that they're better than the boss. And it's like the boss never knows never does the right thing, never can make a good decision, never knows how to, and we gotta stick it to the boss and get our rights. And what am I always talking about? I'm always talking about how the boss isn't good enough. And if the boss would do this, and if the boss would do that, and we build this, and it becomes a preferred place. You could never go into management yourself, because you'll never become what you despise. So being the battler at the bottom of the ladder is your preferred position in your workplace. It's your preferred. I'm the black sheep of the family. My sister, I could say my sister's quite a very wealthy and successful woman, lives in Brisbane, beautiful home, beautiful kids, beautiful family. She's got the gift of the gab she uses in marketing and makes lots of money. And it's super awesome. She's always been a great blessing, And it was like, growing up, it was like, oh, little Tony. She's 6, 7, 8 years older than me, little Tony, And when I was a teenager, I was naughty Tony. That probably started a little bit earlier, if I'm honest with myself. Naughty Tony probably started a lot earlier than teenage. But I got labelled the black sheep. And it was like I was the one who was just messing up the life, messing up the world. And I couldn't be like, I couldn't be the good one. I was the black sheep. I sort of didn't understand that. It's like, black sheep? Have you ever seen a black sheep? No, have you? I haven't seen many of them. They're pretty special though, aren't they, when you see one? That's what I originally was saying. I'm the black sheep. Pretty special. Till I learned what they were really saying. It becomes such a strong place. You know what they would fortify? Where were palaces? Where you think of a fortress or a palace, where it's built? Up on a hill. This biblical language is all about sieges. It's all about sieges. It's all about siege warfare, right? There's a big fortress, a big palace up on a hill. No one can bring it down. No one can bring it down. When these lies, when we begin to live out these lies, and we all have it. There's been thinking that we're all in the same bucket, right? Someone's spoken stuff to us. The lie has gotten into our heart, like, I'm not a good enough pastor. I'm not a good enough friend. I'm not a good enough husband. I need this, I need this, I need this, and I don't have it, I'll never will have it to complete what God's calling me to do. They become such a strong place. It needs more than you and I to pull these things down. It needs the power of Jesus. It needs the power of Jesus. It needs the power of Jesus. The problem with what we talk about is we went through an era of self-help books. Have you ever read a self-help book? You haven't? Oh, I've done it numerous times, I've got to say. How do I get myself out of this pickle? What are some of the tools I need as a person to be successful and lay a hold of the things that I need to in life? And the problem with this idea of that I can do it myself is really what has happened in my world is I'm building on ruins. I'm building on brokenness. Because I've been living the lie, and the lie has been hurting me for a long. It's been hurting my self-esteem. It's been hurting my self-image. Oh, someone got hurt. Little Nadie got hurt. And when we try and build, I don't know if you've ever tried to build onto something that's already broken. Maybe you're not silly enough to do that. I have done it numerous times. But when it's just all out of whack, right? The thing's broken. The thing's broke. And when all human beings, we are human beings. And when we've been living with brokenness, if we just try to tag things on, like, just have a good attitude. Just try every day to have a good attitude and you'll be right. Just stop being negative Nelly. Stop the negative Nelly and everything will turn around for you. You're feeling a bit depressed, you're feeling a bit anxious, just stop being negative Nelly and that'll fix it all. No, it ain't. It's broke. So we've got to go. We need something of a nature that it's beyond this world, that's beyond it's beyond our own ability, and this is where the Spirit of God comes in. This is the nature and this is the zone of the Spirit of God. Are you with me? That is a place, see, what does he say? Jesus talks about if you want a firm foundation, if you're going to build a house, you've got to build on you've got to start strong. You've got to start at the foundation. Right, we've got to go back to start that. We've got to let Paul actually uses this word catharsis. He means what's there. You got to let that be torn right down. We got to pull out everything out of there, and we got to allow God to start again on a firm foundation of our faith in Jesus Christ. That's where we start strong. That's a strong foundation right there, and we got to let His speech and we got to build our lives on His truth, not on the facts that we find on Google. We got to find it in Jesus. Jesus said, He didn't say, I am the way, the facts, and the life. He didn't say that. He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. He doesn't want you to just get facts, because the fact is you might be sick right now, but the truth says that Jesus has the power and ability to deal with your sickness and bring healing. And the fact is you may be an addict right now, but that isn't who you are. That's just what the devil has put on your life, and he can start again. It's like, oh, well, I'll just go into a self-help group. And it's like, yeah, well, get into a help group, talk to people, find someone to talk to. That's probably some of the problem at the start. But the thing is you can't build on those ugly ruins you've got. You got to start afresh. You got to start strong. You got to go Jesus. You got to desire Jesus. Just keep getting more money is not going to be your answer, friend. I ministered for 4 years in one of the most wealthiest suburbs in Sydney, and the blokes were dropping like flies, killing themselves. Because when they didn't get enough money, they lost their job, they had to boot with all the money and all the stuff they owed and all this stuff. And when they didn't have their money, their wives are leaving them, and they'd take off with their kids, and they get left in a disaster and go off themselves. Like money, friend, money could be gone tomorrow and you're stuffed. Build your foundation on Jesus. Doesn't matter if you got millions. I'm not preaching against money, because, mate, God can use you. God's going to use you if you got money. He's going to use you if you don't. If your foundation is in Jesus. In fact, Jesus, if you got money, Jesus is interested in your heart. Isn't He, Nate? Say yes. Give that to me, Tony. Not yet, buddy. He wants to get a hold of your whole world. He wants to get a hold of your heart. Our road to victory ain't paved with the modification of our behaviour, but by the spiritual transformation of our thought life. It's going to start right here. Well, what do you think to do with your money? What do you think to do with your kids? Are you going to trust God with them? You know what the opposite of this is? Control. Who's a control addict? 6 honest people. The reverse of this is we want to control. We want to control this. We want to control the kid. We want to control the missus. We want to try to control. That might be a bit hard. Control, he's talking about conformity, not control. He says this in Romans 12:2. Look at this. Control. No, it says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will. That's why your life, the direction of your life will be determined by your strongest thoughts, friends. Yeah. And if those strongest thoughts are propelling you towards broken relationship, they're propelling you towards self-advancement. Me, all the time. Me. I'm an expert at self-advancement. I look up, get it. What? You are too. Don't look at me like that. What is the first thing you think of when you get up? Amen. What did you, someone said? Mine? Yeah, someone said the magic word. Coffee. I don't know. No, what do you think of, Grace, when you first get up? Cup of tea. Yes. The first thing you thought about was you and your tea. Add the Bible, and that was a good one. And then a bit later on the day, then who do I think about again? Me. Going to my job and getting my money. We do a lot of my stuff, right? I do a lot of my stuff. And we're really, really good looking at that. But what in here is our brain, right? We're going to get the victory. I don't know, what battle do you face in your mind? It's probably a strongest thought. It's probably a continual strong thought. Listen, we can't sit on the sidelines to watch these battles. We can't just ignore it. It's like that battle's happening, it's just happening in New South Wales. Dirty New South Welshmen. And we watch from afar and go, that could never happen to me. Oh, look at that person's marriage. Look at them, how they treat each other. That could never happen to me. Look at that job, look at that boss. That could never happen to me. Wow. I just want to, humbly come to my Jesus and say, Jesus, who do you want me to be? Because I can't just look from the sidelines. I think Christians, we're so good at just looking. I'm just so good looking at the sidelines. That the battle is over there, and I just ignore this. I just ignore this thing that's going on in my world. I just ignore, my wife. I'll just ignore the boss and what they're doing. I'll just ignore this issue, and I'll just keep going through life. I'll just ignore this area of my world. I'll just ignore, talking to Jesus. I'll talk to him next month about that. I'll give his thoughts. I'll go to church this week, and that'll be fine. And God and me will be sweet. I think there's a transformation, friends, that we need God for today. In our innermost person. When my strongest thoughts are to go after what God thinks about me, what God thinks about my wife, what God thinks about my boss, what God thinks about the people in my workplace, what God thinks about my money, what God thinks about my parenting with my kids, what God thinks on the matter of these issues. And to find that out, I've got to spend time in prayer and talking to him, and I've got to spend time reading the scriptures about him, and I need to spend time with my brothers and sisters to reflect off them and say, is this where God's direction is for our lives? Is this the way we go ahead as Christian people who are in love with Jesus and looking after each other? Paul says about this, he's talking about Paul's in the midst of encouraging people in rejoicing, in the midst of suffering, in the midst of whatever you're going through. And he says, you're going to find peace, right? He said, the peace of God's going to guard your heart. The peace of God is going to look after you. And just before this, he says, rejoice in the Lord. And again, I say rejoice. This is the context of where we're just about to read. If there is any a time in society right now where we're just saying everything's bad, 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 bad. Are you looking at the figures on the telly and 400 cases down south, or, that may be your COVID news, and then you've got this other news, and you've got overseas news, and everything just looks bad, bad, bad. In the middle of it, if we let those headlines run our life, we got to be depressed. You're going to be anxious. You're going to be fearful. Is that coming on my doorstep? And Paul says, no, the way out of this is not letting those thoughts be your strongest thoughts. He says the way out of this is to begin to rejoice in our God. That's the triumph. The triumph in the battle of our mind is going to start with rejoicing. It's going to start with getting our thoughts and our hearts and our desires on God. We get ourselves in a big mess and say, oh God, where were you? But we've allowed these strongholds and these to live out these lies in our lives, and it comes to become this fortress, a preferred place for us to live, where we think, oh, God doesn't work, God doesn't heal anymore, God can't restore my workplace, God can't save people, God can't deliver me out of this situation, because whatever our mindset there is. But Paul says this finally. If there's one thing you're going to do, what? Whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent and praiseworthy, what do? The battle starts here. The battle starts here. The battle starts here. Think about such things. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. The God of peace will be with you. Friends, today the battle that you face, the battle that we face is going to start with when we allow the transforming power of Jesus to change our mind. You came here today thinking I was just going to try and reinforce something